Toro Talk, brand new look. Alex, Bryan, we're going to talk receivers. We're going to talk owners. We're going to talk the Continental shift here on Toro Talk. But first, Alex.
Vamos Toros.
Welcome, everyone, to the very first new look episode of Toro Talk. I'm your host, Bryan Webster, and I'm with Alex Allman. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great, Bryan. It's good to be back with you, sir.
Yeah, we've done this a while. Josh and Ace in the ownership group kind of reach out to us to try to do a show here, build up excitement with the Toros. So we're the official show of the San Antonio Toros of the Continental League. Alex, we finally made it. We're official finally.
We're official. I see sponsors down there. I see nice graphics and the whole 9 yards. So we're the official podcast of the San Antonio Toros.
There we go. Let's talk about this ownership group. Me and you haven't been able to talk about it in front of the camera. I know we've had a relationship. Josh Mayer obviously is the face of it. The goofy looking Texan that sells all the fireworks. He's my guy. He's an old Brahmins guy. He kind of leads it. He's kind of the face of the organization. Then they got James Ace, our boy from back in the day. He's the one that taught me all these graphics. You see the moving stuff in the background here. Ace taught me that. And then Robert Smith. What do you think about this ownership group so far?
I love it. And I just want to tip my cap to all those guys to take we all know about the UFL and the San Antonio Brahmas and sort of how that all went down, and a lot of respect for, Josh bought in at the very beginning with the Brahmas, and, to have sort of the group that's willing to take the reins to keep professional football in San Antonio, a lot of respect for these guys. And if you look at what they've done in such a short amount of time, it really is incredible that we're at this point. I mean, we're less than 2 months away from kickoff, and we have real professional players to talk about and all the work that they're doing in the community in San Antonio. Definitely bringing the People's League to the people. So hats off to those guys.
This is no disrespect to the other organizations, the franchises in this league, but this looks like one of the premier teams that are really setting the bar for this league, because the transparency that Josh has. If you follow him on Twitter, social media, Facebook, it showed up on my Facebook now. The man's everywhere. He's like bugged my phone, but the agenda where they have the meetings, he's right there. The transparency, and it just an absolutely it's so awesome to see, right? Because this is the guy that, or all these guys are really, because Ace, we know Ace loves these leagues too, but like this is the guy that loves this spring football, summer football, and the fact that he's been one of those guys that is like, hey, they need to do this, they need to do this, they need to do this. And now he's actually doing it, and he's being so transparent. There's no secrets, and it's such a great sight to see. And like we hung up the mics, right? We hung up the mics when we did a DC show, we did the Maulers, but like we kind of went away from this.
Yeah.
But the transparency has kind of brought us back. Like, hey, these guys are good in leagues that sometimes you get a little confused. And these guys are standing out, and it's just such a great follow.
They are. And I think, too, I'm excited about the Continental League from the standpoint that, I think this league, that, if you ever have a chance, and I know you have, listened to Commissioner Kelly talk about sort of the purpose of this league, how they want to position it, he's spot on. And I think that this league really fills a void. I think a void for not only player evaluation in terms of like looking at guys for the NFL, the UFL, and the CFL, and we'll talk a little bit more about how the CFL plays into it a little bit later on in the show. But then more importantly, I think this model of fan ownership is very unique, and I think it will work. And I think also too, when I've looked at some of the community events that the Toros are doing, when I look at the ticket prices, when I look at, the venue they'll be playing in, they really are bringing football closer to the people. And, they're doing it at a price where, families are going to be able to go out and build memories, enjoy real professional football and actually be the community's team. So, when you guys contacted, we talked about doing this again. I was very excited because I'm excited about the league, and I'm very excited about what the Toros are doing in San Antonio too.
Man, I know we haven't done this in a while, but your transition has been spot on, right? I can't believe you did that beautiful transition already, Alex. I thought it would be a little
You're
a little
easy to
bit.
work with.
It would take you a minute, but they have a fan event, and we'll have boots on the ground with Dustin, the producer, at Raising Cane's at 2322 Military Drive in San Antonio. It's a spirit event night. That's on the 10th of April. This show's coming out the 7th, so only in 3 short days. Go out there, meet the coaches. I know Bedwell, head coach Bedwell is going to be there. Josh, of course, will be there. I don't know if Ace and the other owners will be there, but Josh, obviously the face of it. Go to Raising Cane's, meet the team. I don't know how many players are going, but every time you see a fan event, it seems like there's players. Bedwell is always there. Sometimes Glanville. Like they're the community's team. They really are doing what they say they are. Like there's a lot of leagues out there, and this is no shot at any other spring football league or arena team that say that they're the community team. But Josh and his team has gone into the community and really been the community team. And I know they're paying our bills, right? They're our boss right here. I'm not kissing their butts at all. What I'm telling you is, if you watch this is what every fan has wanted, and this is one of those fan events, the Spirit event, on April 10th, 5 to 7 p.m. Raising Cane's. Do you guys have Raising Cane's up there?
No, we don't have them way up here.
Have you ever tried Raising Cane's? Alex is up in Pennsylvania. I'm down in Georgia. So we got boots on the ground with Dustin, the producer, but we're going to follow this closely. Have you ever tried Raising Cane's? I know you travel.
When I go to San Antonio, I'll be sure to, though. If they're friends of the Toros, they're friends of mine.
There you go. Raising Cane's. We talked about the ownership group. We will dive deeper as the episodes have gone on about the WeFunder. But we're just going to kind of do an overview. I know if you go to other shows on this channel, other Toro Talks, before me and Alex kind of took it over with being the blubbering mouths of the Toros. They have some great interviews with Stan Bedwell and Jerry Glanville, talking to the radio and everything. First, your take on Stan Bedwell.
Oh, he's great. I mean, what a great story, too. I mean, a college baseball player that always wanted to play football, and his senior year goes and finds a program, I think, up in North Dakota, Division III program that he can play.
Yeah. And
then parlays that into like a 17-year career in Europe. And, his connection with Hal Mummy and the air raid offense, which we'll get into there a bit. And then when you start to put the pieces together and like how it all fits with Hal Mummy and his network of people. And now we have, Jerry Glanville as our defense coordinator. Anyway, Coach Bedwell is a true football guy. No question about it. Very impressive. He's also, too, really had a presence on a lot of these, different podcasts and TV shows and whatnot, really push out, talking about the Toros and getting the word out. So I think he's adapted very well to being a head coach and sort of the face of the franchise.
Yeah, and if you watch it, it seems like Bedwell and Josh have been friends for 25 years, and they just have known each other for probably a year or so.
Right.
So, definitely an interesting coaching group. That talking about our personal preference, you love offense, you love the air raid, the spread it out kind of thing, and I like defense. And Jerry Glanville brings that unique defense, right?
So that was one of the things, when we did talk about this show, and I'm going to hold Josh to this. I want to interview Jerry Glanville. He was a hero of mine when I was a young coach. I loved his style. What he does on defense is, and I think that's something that the Toro fans are going to really appreciate. You're going to have Coach Bedwell. You're going to have those guys on offense, and he's got some really good assistant coaches with him too. They're going to be running the air raid. They'll put the ball on display. That's going to be exciting. And Jerry Glanville's going to be dialing up blitzes from all over the place. And he had the famous Grits Blitz defense with the Falcons back in the late 70s and the House of Pain with the Oilers. And I'm going to hold Josh to that. He promised me that I'd get to talk to my hero, Jerry Glanville. So really excited to have him as part of the Toros.
For those that don't know, Alex is kind of an old head here. He's an old head, so he likes the older guys, and I kind of like the young guys. So this is an interesting mix. But I like defense, he likes offense. So we'll go back and forth for the entire season. We'll be following this every week. But first, we're going to hear from our sponsors. Our first sponsor.
When it comes to performance, one thing is true. You can't do your best unless you're feeling your best. Whether you're crushing it in the classroom to ace a test or pushing hard for that extra point, you have no time for downtime. So if you get sidelined by sickness or injury, just remember Complete Care. We have 3 convenient San Antonio locations, and we're open 24/7 to diagnose and treat you quickly. With X-ray, CAT scan, ultrasound, and on-site lab, we'll get you back in the game. Nowhere to go. Complete Care.
Complete Care, a proud sponsor, a proud partner of the San Antonio Toros. All right, so we're getting you ready for training camp. Training camp's coming real fast. We're going to break down the position groups a little bit over. Alex, a former coach, coach where? D2, D3?
Yeah, D3, 3 different D3 schools
in the Northeast. So Alex is a football head. So I'm going to trust him. He's our expert, right? I'm the blubbering mouth. Alex is our expert. All right, Alex, we're going to start with the wide receivers because me and you, I think we kind of agree that with this air raid, obviously you need some receivers. You do need a good quarterback, and we'll talk about the quarterbacks. They get all the glitz and glamour. Let's be real, right? Like everyone knows the quarterback's name, but me and you want to get kind of like behind the curtain here. Wide receivers. Where do you want to start? Who's the one name for you that you go, okay, this is for real?
I would probably say top of my head would be DeCorian JT Clark, University of Texas, San Antonio. If you look at him, 6'3", 220. So he's got that, NFL type body. Yeah. Put up really big numbers at UTSA early in his career, ACL injury in 2023. So, he's one of those guys where the Continental Football League is perfect. Gives him an opportunity to sort of, get another chance to get out there and strut his stuff. And again, when we talk about the continental shift and sort of those CFL rules, it's going to give him, I heard Commissioner Kelly talking about evaluating players, and it's so hard when you're looking at American college football players to see how they'd fit in the CFL because it's such a different game. And I think that continental shift in the fourth quarter is going to give guys like JT an opportunity to not only show his skills for American football, but also show how those skills will translate into Canadian football. So he's one that really, he's a stud. He really jumped off the list when I was going through the list of receivers. I'd probably say a close second. And again, here's where my D3 roots are going to come out on.
Wait a minute. For those that don't know, Alex is a University of Cincinnati graduate. How did you not say Khalil Lewis? We did not plan this. I didn't know where he was going with this when I asked that question. How do you not say Khalil Lewis? And that's no disrespect to Khalil. I'm just saying, I thought the homer in you, because you guys will find out Alex is one of the biggest homers you'll ever meet, would say him first just because you can mention the Bearcats on TV.
Well, for that exact reason, I didn't want to come across as too biased.
Oh, here we go. Alex, the politician.
But you know what? If you want to, let's go Khalil Lewis. I mean, here's a guy, 5'11", 190. He was a featured receiver with the Bearcats, his junior and senior year, and, played a good brand of football at Cincinnati. He's interesting, too, because he's had opportunities in the XFL with Houston. Actually has the CFL experience, which is huge as well. He was at training camp with Hamilton. But, he's another one of those guys who's had USFL, XFL, CFL experience. And, and he's another guy that needs to see the field. And, when I think sometimes, no disrespect to NFL and talent evaluators and whatnot, but they get caught in some of these pro day numbers. They get caught in how some of these guys test out. And I think there could have been, maybe some areas where they looked at Khalil and said, well, he's 5'11", 190, kind of a tweener maybe from size standpoint. But, the numbers speak for themselves, what he did at UC. And, that certainly isn't, that's a good brand of football. So Khalil, wishing you all the best. Go represent.
You talk about a brand of football. What is the prototype for the air raid for people that aren't 100%? Are they smaller guys, or are you looking for the giants like Randy Moss?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is yes. I think you can plug them in pretty much wherever. And, when you look at the guys we have in camp or the receivers we have in camp, we have some of those long guys that you would see, out, maybe at, out beyond the numbers that can stretch the field. But, the air raid, what's interesting about that offense is it's a little different than run and shoot, in that the run and shoot attacks coverage, where the air raid attacks the field. It attacks open areas and grass. So I think, it gives, look at some of these receivers we have that are good yard after catch guys. And you think about the concept of the air raid with mesh, and you think about all those crossing routes, and getting the guys in the ball short and intermediate, and then letting them gain, yards after the catch. So many folks think, and the air raid does have that vertical stretch component to it, but, you hear air raid and you think, oh man, they're throwing it 50 yards down the field every play. Not really. It's the short intermediate.
A lot of mesh, right? It's a lot of mesh.
Yep. And so
that's the way I play NCAA. I use a lot of mesh because I think you can get guys open and use space. That I'm a big basketball guy, and it's similar to basketball where you're using the space to your advantage.
Using the space and setting picks. You like basketball, you like picks. That's the mesh. These guys want to be slapping hands when they mesh in the middle of the field. But, I think you're going to have guys like, Wayne Ruby Jr., a D3 guy, Mount Union. Anybody that follows football knows Mount Union's been a powerhouse. When you look at, 74 touchdowns in 4 years, 74 touchdown receptions in 4 years, averaged over 16 yards a catch at Mount Union. I don't care what level it is. And that's getting it done. And I can tell you from my experience in as a D3 coach, we had guys that were 1AA and FCS that came down to us. We had guys that actually went up and played at that level too. So, I think that, here's a guy, he's been in camp in the CFL with Saskatchewan, that could really surprise some people as well. It would be Wayne Ruby. I say keep a lookout for him.
Fair enough. How about Cam Eccles-Looper? Me and you covered the USFL. We were the Maulers. He was with the Generals. They were in Canton together. I'm sure that me and Cam have crossed paths being in Canton a few times during that year. Experience, right? He's over 30. This is his last shot, right? He got cut with the Stallions. Don't worry, Cam. We all don't like the Stallions. But you bring a guy like Looper, like what can he bring to the table here for the Toros?
Yeah, I mean, he signed out of high school with TCU. He ended up at I think Arkansas State and then Western Kentucky, fastest receiver in the Sun Belt. And I think he's going to be a guy too that when we talk about especially in the CFL, they look for guys, and he's had CFL experience with Hamilton and BC, Calgary, Winnipeg. But when you look at in the CFL, they look for guys that can play special teams too. And I think that's one of the areas too where Eccles-Looper is going to separate some from maybe some of the other receivers in camp. And then he's that Swiss Army knife that you can, play on the offensive side of the ball, 6 foot 190. But he was I think he was listed as one of the most freakish athletes in college football in 2016 because of his speed and overall physical capability. So, he's one where I think he was a freshman All-American as a punt returner. I think we're going to see some good things out of him.
Great. Overall, how excited are you for this wide receiver group?
Oh, I'm very excited. I mean, one guy we didn't touch on yet would be Chris Carpenter out of UTSA. Let me give you this one because I had to double check this to make sure my eyes weren't going bad. From a kick return standpoint, 2024, he had 5 kick returns. He averaged 52.2 yards a kick return. Now, what do you think he's going to be doing in the Continental Football League? I hope he's returning kicks. 52.2 yards a punt return. That's crazy. He's also been in Saints minicamp. He's another one of those guys that can absolutely fly. Doesn't have CFL experience, but that's okay. He's going to get some of that with the Continental shift. He's another one that really kind of, popped out at me. And then the other one would be Lance LaChandra. So I don't know if you guys remember him. He was on Netflix QB1 show, signed with Maryland as a quarterback, ended up at Louisiana and put up really good numbers at Louisiana as a wide receiver, 6'2", 215. He's another one that kind of, the Continental Football League is tailor-made for, to give him that opportunity to get, he basically had 2 years at Louisiana to be a receiver. He'd been a quarterback his whole life. He's somebody that I think that, and he's another guy too, that not only can play receiver, but could also be in the quarterback room too. They have him listed as an athlete on the roster, but he's another one that I think can really produce. And then finally, Kalen Harris out of Oklahoma Baptist, a D2 guy. He broke all sorts of single season, all sorts of career records at Oklahoma Baptist. Had a chance mini camp with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. So there's another guy bringing some CFL experience as well. So it's an interesting room, man. I mean, we got tall guys. We got guys that might be your, more traditional, what you think of slot or inside receivers. But one thing for sure, there's not a single guy on our list of receivers that hadn't put up big numbers in college.
At some point. Yeah,
exactly right.
What do you think about the UTSA, the TCU connection, and how it seems like the Toros, and Josh will talk about that Texas football forever, and that he loves Texas football, and I agree with him as much as I don't want to say this out loud. Texas football is the cream of the crop, right? How I'd like their connection. Does that bring the team even tighter to the community and maybe build some credibility with them? Do you think that?
Oh, 100%. I think the Continental Football League looking to get these local guys, and that's another advantage we have in San Antonio is you do have UTSA, and in case you haven't looked, they've played pretty good football over there. They're playing in good football in the American Conference. They've done outstanding job over there, and our coaches were at UTSA Pro Day, so they're making those connections. Cade Collenbach, our long snapper, is from UTSA. And again, it gives it that local feel. I mean, people are going to want to spend. There are a lot of UTSA fans in San Antonio. They can go right over to UIW and watch their former Roadrunners get it on for the Toros. So that's a very good thing. And then shout out to Dylan Wright too. He's a TCU receiver that was the 12th overall receiver in the nation coming out of high school. Went to Minnesota. TCU got hurt. He's another one that a lot of these local TCU folks might want to keep an eye on as well.
I wonder if Ace was part of that. Ace, the Baylor grad, was he part of that TCU? I just don't see Ace being.
He's
very
a closet
TCU.
frog. He's a closet
frog. Wow. Okay. All right. When we come back, we'll talk Continental Shift. We're going to introduce the league to the our fans here on Toro Talk. We're going to go rule by rule. That makes this league a little different than what the American Football League has. American football fans have seen. But first, we're going to hear from South Texas Spine and Surgical Hospital.
South Texas Spine and Surgical Hospital and Outpatient Center is named one of the top 5 hospitals in the state of Texas for joint procedures. Our integrated approach ensures a smooth journey from diagnosis to recovery. We are a tradition of excellence and a legacy of caring.
We are back here on Toro Talk. Me and Alex, that commercial went a lot faster than I thought it was going to. We're back here. The San Antonio Toros of the Continental Football League. Continental Shift. The fourth quarter, the rules change. Tell me a rule that stands out for you. You love Canadian Football League. So, they took a lot from the Canadian Football League. Tell me that one thing that might stand out to you that you're like, okay, I'm digging this. I know you love your Argos. I know you do. I had to find a when I did a show with you, I was like, I got to root for BC. I just love the city of Vancouver just because. But I know you're really like a legit Argo fan. So bring one of those Canadian rules down here to America. And what's the one that you like the most from the Continental Football League?
Yeah, there are a lot of different rules in the Canadian game and the American game. And you've heard me say this, and, I coached American football. But for me, I think the Canadian game is a better game to watch. There are more of these little, rules that are different from American football that really do add to, how you manage the end of a game. And I think fans are going to see that with the Continental Shift. It's interesting because the Canadian Football League this year decided to do away with the Rouge. And the Continental Football League is going to keep the Rouge. And I'll talk about that just a little bit because it's going to be very different for American fans. I don't know if any U.S. fans have seen a game tied late in the game, 3 seconds to go, field goal kicker walks onto the field to set up for the game-winning field goal. He misses it wide the uprights, kicks it out of the end zone. That's a point. That's the pesky Rouge. That's a walk-off win in Canada. It's a missed field goal in the U.S. So basically the Rouge would be, and it really does change strategy. It comes into play with scoring, with field position. The Rouge is basically if a team punts into the end zone or kicks into the end zone, the receiving team has to return the ball out of the end zone or give up a point. If you kick it out of the end zone, there are going to be times where you're punting and you think, okay, do I want to kick it through the end zone and take a point, or do I want to try to pin them, deep and maybe coffin corner inside the 10? Conversely, you got a 4-point lead, you're returning a punt and they punt it into the end zone and you field it. Are you going to take it out and potentially give up field position? Or are you going to take the rouge and now field goal can tie the game at the end? So it really does become a very strategic weapon late in the games. That we'll see it in the Continental Shift. But that pesky rouge, I can tell you, it's, somebody will give up a point in the first quarter and go down 1-0. You think they hit a home run. And then at the end of the game, that team wins by 1 point. So it's going to be fun to see how that plays. It's also going to be fun to watch our special team guys in the U.S. game who've never had to play with the rouge, how they handle that.
Like Cooper, right? You talked about him returning punts all the time, but maybe this time, So I just wanted to explain a little bit more. So when the punter kicks it and he's aiming for a coffin corner, right? He's aiming for that one, but it bounces and it goes off to the side. Do you get the 1 point there, or does it have to go through the back?
Nope, anywhere in the end zone. So it could go.
So you can hit it on the one, it land on the one, bounce, and go off to the side through the end zone. That's 1 point. It doesn't have to go through the back.
Nope. As long as it's the other side of the pylon in the end zone, that's a rouge.
Okay. All right. It's going to be interesting. I'm not locked into Canadian football like you, but to see that kind of strategy, it just changes it. And so would you say the rules for that fourth quarter, the Continental Shift, are to get guys ready for the Canadian Football League, or just to make the league exciting? Because I think it's a little bit of both.
It's both. I think it's both. I think the Continental Shift, they have the waggle, which is the pre snap motion and whatnot.
3 downs.
Yeah, 3 downs, 20-second clock. So it's a lot faster. There are clock rules in the last 3 minutes of the game, where, that's going to come into play. I think one of the big things to look for, though, and won't steal this thunder, we'll save it for another show, is the neutral zone is a yard between the offensive line and the defensive line. And you say, well, what deal does that make? It changes a lot of the blocking angles for the offensive guys. It also changes a lot of how the defensive guys are going to take on those offensive guys. Yeah. So I do think it's going to really provide an opportunity for scouts to take a much better look at some of these American players and see how their skills translate to the Canadian game.
That's awesome. Like we talked about, we will be breaking down these rules, the Continental Shift, throughout the entire preseason. While we get ready, we'll do another position group next week. We're going to do this weekly. Me and Alex are back into this.
We're back.
For those that don't know, I know that we're 28 minutes into the show. I was doing Hammer Time all by myself. I was following the Maulers all the way through. I just a little introduction to the San Antonio fan base. I was waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning sometimes in my garage. I was filming it. I covered in sweat because I live in South Georgia and my garage is not AC. Just putting it out there. But Alex would always leave a comment. Alex would always reach out to me all the time. We became friends. I met him at the championship game when the Maulers made it to the championship game, and I was like, "Hey, come on, I'll just talk to you one time." And then we started doing shows, and it was great. And then the Maulers went away. We went to DC, and then we did 1 year at DC, and I was like, "I can't do this." I like it. It just became a lot because you got to love what you're talking about.
Yeah,
and that connects us to the San Antonio Toros, because I love what they're doing. And we talked about the ownership group being transparent. We talked about this league being a little bit different than the rest of the spring leagues. You've got Jerry Glanville. Come on, man. Like I was born in the 80s. So I grew up with Jerry Glanville, saving tickets for Elvis and all that kind of stuff. Atlanta Falcons, the Oilers, obviously. I don't remember him with the Oilers, but I know he was there with the Oilers. You got Bedwell that's got the Hal Mummy connection and the air raid, and then you have this ownership group. Like I said, the transparency, and I like the ownership group. I actually like them. It's not Mike Rapoli or Fox or anything like that, right? It's actually an owner group that you can DM them and you're going to get a response. They're not bigger than you. So I just think this is. I know this is cheesy, but it's continentally different than everything else. Like it's a lot different here with the San Antonio Toros and the rest of the league. Like I said before, this is this is the premier franchise. This is the one, especially in the Texas teams. I know Ohio Valley will tell you something different, but we'll go there one day. But we're going to get you ready for the season, the inaugural season. My buddy Alex, we talk football all the time. Alex, you got anything else before we take off? Because this has been a pretty good one.
It's been a good one, and it's great to work with you again. Like you, I'm very excited about this league. I see where it fits. I see the vision. You know, they've got good football people leading the league. Really honored that, Josh and Ace and the rest of the ownership team would ask us to do this. I'm excited about doing it. Just very thrilled to be part of Toro Talk, and it's going to be a fun season. And, listen to us. We're going to get you ready. We'll go position group by position group, and we'll have a little bit of fun doing it as we go.
Fair enough. All right, that's our first episode, Alex. We'll do it again next week.
We'll do it again next week. And until we meet again, vamos, Toros, and so long, everybody.